What's up, everybody? This is Mean Dean from the Outsiders Podcast, KliqPod Inc. I want to welcome you to the pay-per-view A-Z review, reviewing anything from WWE, WCW, and ECW in order from A to Z. On last time's podcast, we talked about ECW's Anarchy Rules 1999, emanating from Chicago, Illinois. Next in line would be WWE's Armageddon 1999. This would be the very first Armageddon for WWE. Now, this came from Fort Lauderdale, Florida on December 12th, 1999. Very interesting pay-per-view. There's a lot going on. There were some crazy moments that really made you feel nostalgic about the 90s and really understanding the Attitude Era. And then there was just some moments that made you wonder if we fetishized the 90s and the Attitude Era too much. So I'll get into that. Jumping in at match number 1, the 16-man Battle Royal for the number 1 contendership for the tag team titles. Already a lot going on just with that title. The early Dudleys were a part of this, and by early Dudleys, I mean you're talking Bubba Ray with a do-rag that's a Confederate flag. You're talking about Bubba Ray having a speech impediment, right? And every time he does, Devon smacks him upside the head to correct his speech impediment. And really, a lot of it was just entering the tag teams. And for those of you who have seen this, you'll understand the confusion in the first match because there's a lot of times where you're wondering if both members of the tag team had to be eliminated over the top rope or just one, and we found out it was just one. Enter Edge and Christian, enter the Headbangers, enter the Hardy Boys with Terry, not Lita, so early Hardy Boys. Enter the Mean Street Posse, enter the Acolytes, not APA, but the Acolytes, so all these tag teams are pretty early. Enter the Godfather and Sexual Chocolate Mark Henry. Enter Too Cool, Scotty Too Hottie, right? So the first team to be eliminated is the Mean Street Posse. And they kept switching it back up, illegally going back in and getting eliminated until the ref could see it. Now, what I liked about this match is there's only one ref, so it caused a lot of conflict on who was actually eliminated and who wasn't. I think that's something they should use in future Royal Rumbles if you want a little bit of controversy, right? Next, the Headbangers were eliminated. They were dressed in drag. It was pretty awesome. Godfather and Sexual Chocolate Mark Henry were eliminated after that. Too Cool was eliminated after that, so at that point we only had Edge, Christian, the Dudleys, and the Acolytes. Edge and Christian got eliminated right at that point, and all of a sudden the Dudleys did. So we have two huge teams that got eliminated. We still have the Hardys. We still have the Acolytes. Jeff Hardy hit this nasty springboard moonsault. It was really cool. It was from the outside, hit his legs on the ropes, did a moonsault. It was awesome. And both Bradshaw and Matt Hardy landed on the ground at the same time. Now, it looked like because Bradshaw's taller, he did, but the ref said no elimination, get back in the ring, it's a wash. Well, Farouk then got eliminated, but the ref didn't see it. All of a sudden, Farouk runs in and tosses Jeff Hardy way up in the air, eliminated. Acolytes are number 1 contenders for the WWF tag team titles. Next, we have an early Kurt Angle, and I keep saying early, and I know I don't want you guys to hang on the word early, but I am hanging on the word early. Early Dudleys, early Edge and Christian, early Hardys. All these things are nostalgic for me, and I hope they're nostalgic for you. Kurt Angle at his earliest was a total dick. He was a pretentious Olympic gold medalist, and that's what we loved about him. So as soon as Lillian Garcia interviewed Kurt Angle, all he talked about was being undefeated. And the only loss he had was him tagging with Steve Blackman, but Steve Blackman lost. So that led him up to the match, Kurt Angle versus Steve Blackman. It was a fairly poor match, even for a guy as technical as Steve Blackman, even for a guy as technical as Kurt Angle. Angle missed a moonsault. Everybody loves that spot. He always has these high rainbow moonsaults. And really, the fans for most of the match were chanting boring, which I would have to agree. But that was not very common back in that time. So that's something that should be considered as rare. The winner's Angle, I can't even tell you how he won. Honestly, at that point, I was falling asleep. On to the next match. We have a vignette at the start, and it's a woman getting changed behind a white sheet. You know how Jerry the King Lawler always talks about sex and puppies and all these things, which is still very, very creepy to be Jerry Lawler and say those things, and to be the fans and just be uncomfortable. One thing that made me even more uncomfortable than that was watching Michael Cole stare at a pair of titties for an entire 15-second interview and walk away without looking once at this woman. And for those of you who have seen Michael Cole back at that time in 1999, you will understand that this little skinny slimy freak is making you feel very uncomfortable. That moves us into match number 3. Now listen, I will preface this match with this. This is a women's title match. No, this is not Charlotte and Asuka. No, this is not Trish and Lita. This is an evening gown match inside of an above-ground pool with 4 women. One of those women who I don't remember seeing ever, and her name is BB. The next woman would be Jacqueline, the next woman Miss Kitty, and then the current champion Ivory. Moolah and Mae Young as referees, respectfully. So what was strange about this is you had to rip the gown off the lady. I mean, that's all you could do to win the match. That's kind of frustrating because Vince, after Alundra Blaze, stopped using the women's title in competition. Yet we're doing a pool match to take off women's clothes, which, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying anything is wrong with that. It's just not good. I just don't see any merit in that in the world of wrestling. And I understand we're talking entertainment here, but fucking A, this is wrestling. This match is not wrestling. This match is entertainment. Let's just say both and both. Let's say one part of it is entertainment, the other part is wrestling. It's fair? Jacqueline's titty almost popped out of her bra, and JR was ecstatic, right? She had to hold her bra up, so that was that. It looked like Ivory was basically trying to take BB's bra off, except it wasn't coming off, and there wasn't much of a struggle. It just looked like she was waiting for her to take her bra off. Didn't happen, and then Miss Kitty won the world title for women's. And then she took her bra off in front of the whole crowd. And Sergeant Slaughter was right there to make sure that he took care of the towel job. And he did. He did a great job. But they blur it now on the network, so if you do go there and you're expecting titties in your face, titties for Miss Kitty, if you will, that won't happen. Although I did see him at Royal Rumble one time. I'll get to that pay-per-view when we get to the R's. All right, so then we move into a quick promo for Rikishi interviewing. And let me preface his interview with this. His interview started with, "Hickory dickory dock. Rikishi finally speaks." I'll just let that marinate for a second. Oh, sorry, just putting the cap back on my bottle. Keep thinking about that. Okay, so that Rikishi interview was stupid. Moving on to match number 4. He was supposed to get us to the match. His interview did not. Rikishi and Viscera versus Bob and Crash Holly. Now, I have a thing for Crash Holly because he shares the same real last name as me. That was not a good match, though. It was a pretty shitty match. And Viscera was just in a bad mood. I guess that was the angle. So then Rikishi and Viscera got mad at each other. Match number 5, Val Venis versus D'Lo Brown versus the British Bulldog for the European Championship. This wasn't a terrible match. There's a lot of high flying in it. Sometimes the pace slows down in these, which is easy to understand, but very hard. It's very hard to continue to follow the emotional roller coaster if it's not up and down. If it goes up and then it goes down, and then the last moment goes up, that's okay. But it is hard. It is difficult and hard to follow that. Ultimately, though, D'Lo hit his frog splash onto the British Bulldog. And then right after that, Val Venis hit his patented money shot onto D'Lo Brown, who was laying on top of the British Bulldog for the win. Good for you, Val. You are running a pot shop now. Again, I will let that marinate. Open up my drink again so you guys can think about that. Okay. The next match, X-Pac versus Kane in a steel cage match. Now, This was shortly after the Kane and X-Pac world title run for the tag team titles. And it was a pretty decent match. I'd say this was up there with one of the better ones. The whole stipulation essentially was that Kane could not exit the steel cage to win. He'd have to pin, but X-Pac could exit it. Why they had that, I'm not sure. Before they get out there, X-Pac is jawing at Tori, not Tori Wilson. This was a completely different Tori that was part of more of the Kane angle and the X-Pac angle. So Kane climbs out of the cage. They start fighting each other. Pac hits Kane with a bell. They both get back in the cage. And King's at it with these dick jokes. Apparently were upsetting JR. So JR said specifically, and I quote, "Will you stop it with the penis innuendos?" End quote. So, you guys need any time to? Okay. No, New Age Outlaws come out halfway through. They break the cage. It's great. That's part of it. I thought it was kind of weird that they had no other interference. They just wanted to open the cage. I get it because Pac can walk out, but still, I mean, if you're gonna do it, it's a cage match. Why don't you go in there and just beat the shit out of them? If you're still DX at this point, right? X-Pac handcuffs Kane to the cage and starts taking chair shots at him. I mean, these are unprotected, rough chair shots to Kane's head, and he starts to climb. So all of a sudden, Kane breaks the handcuffs, which was a pretty cool visual. Walks out of the ring as X-Pac is descending, and picks him up, throws him back in the ring, climbs all the way up to the top of the cage, and does a giant clothesline from hell type scenario off the top of the cage. A big guy like Kane. It was really cool to see. It was a great visual. Kane ended up pinning. He did win. Now, not to get off my soapbox, but I do hate the idea of cage matches for pinning and submission. I understand the point is you're locked in a cage. You're away from all the elements that could distract you from those wins and those good matches. The problem is I've always loved cage matches where you had to escape. There was no other way. Match 7, which I would say again is up there for a great match on the card, would be Chris Jericho versus Chyna for the Intercontinental title. Now, Chyna for the first, I would say, 7 or 8 minutes of this match really held her own, kept at a male pace, and I don't mean that in any derogatory way. What we seem to run into with women and putting them in matches with men is that men run at a very specific pace. Well, the women are not used to that pace. They're used to their own pace. And great matches, by the way. Amazing matches. Some women's matches are more amazing than men's matches. My point is that Chyna, being the person that she was, took it to the next level and matched Jericho at his pace. And Jericho is not only the self-proclaimed GOAT, but he very well may be the GOAT. So she's keeping up with a future Hall of Famer, and she's a Hall of Famer herself. And she's throwing power moves on this dude. It was amazing to see. Jericho pulled no punches, and I don't, pun intended, sure. Throws Chyna onto a table, throws her face into the steps. Chyna, though, I'd say by minute 10, she starts to show signs of fatigue. That's when you start to see some lagging when she's running, things like that. At that point, Jericho had control, hit the walls of Jericho, and he became the Intercontinental title. I commend Chyna big time for this match. Not only is it hard to keep up with a guy like Chris Jericho who's so athletically gifted, not male or female, doesn't matter, that he can do the things he does in the ring, but Chyna breaking down all the barriers for all women, saying, I can do this too, and I can be better than you at times. So that's awesome. Match 8, it was a okay match. Rock and Sock Connection. That would be Mankind and The Rock versus the New Age Outlaws. It did some outside ring work. There's some decent spots like Billy Gunn getting ready to take off his shirt for the ladies and The Rock just beating the shit out of him with the shirt on his head. And there's some things like that were great. But again, the pace really slowed down. Al Snow interfered, which caused the DQ, which was stupid. And I know there was a storyline going on at that time, but really, I give the man his credit for what he has done in his career. I will always respect him. I just don't think he deserved to be at that level at that time. Then there's a vignette between the Big Show and Big Boss Man. For those of you who remember, 1999, Big Show came into WWE, and the Big Boss Man started taunting him about his dead father, about his family, and the Big Boss Man not only did he make Al Snow eat his own dog. He dragged Big Show's dad in a coffin behind a car. So that's all the setup you need, right? This was a world title match between the Big Show and Big Boss Man. Big Show going into the match as the WWE champion now. Show was in great shape at this point in time, and so much so that he looked really slender. There was a point in time where Prince Albert was out there too. He interfered, but it is a classic no DQ WWE Championship match. I wish those would stay that way all the time, but there could be no disqualification. Show choke slams Albert through a table outside. Bossman gets a couple licks in there, but here's the thing. Big Show rolled into the ring, Bossman got in there, and Big Show grabbed onto the rope and did a kick up like he's Shawn fucking Michaels. It was pretty impressive for a guy that size. All of a sudden, boom, choke slam, Bossman's out. Winner, Big Show, still WWE champion. It was an okay match. Lasted about 5 minutes, maybe. For a title match to go on at that time, it's always strange for me, even in today's world, to see a title match, a world title match, happen before a main event. But this main event was worth it. Now, this next main event was Triple H versus Vince McMahon, no holds barred. The story up to this was the fact that Triple H was getting under Vince McMahon's skin. He was also courting Stephanie around. He knocked Stephanie out with drugs, presumably. Took her to a Las Vegas drive-through wedding chapel. Got married to her, and that ruined the big wedding. So now they're gonna fight. Right? Lots of good build-up to this match. Now, the match itself was also pretty incredible. At first, it's showing the promo for the match, the wedding, and attacking each other. Stephanie walks out first, no music. So Stephanie McMahon I'm in wrestling Stephanie McMahon. At first, Vince walks out there, throws powder in H's eye, gets the upper hand for the next, 3 minutes. Stephanie's cheering on Vince, so, it's a family affair, right? Triple H and Vince are out in the crowd. They're fighting. They're in the dark. They're pretty much everywhere. And all of a sudden, once they kind of make their way back, Foley brings out this grocery cart full of weapons, which is Foley, right? That's pretty amazing. Vince throws some pretty stout shots as it is, but man, he took a trash can lid and just destroyed the shit out of Triple H's head. In defense of that, throws his head into steel steps, which was insane. And he did it pretty viciously. Then they kind of get out to the ramp. There's a whole bunch of army vehicles, helicopters. They're using everything. And for those people who know what the Attitude Era is about, know what went on back there, the ramp was always used and the ramp was always covered with random shit so they could use it. Then there's this machine gun on this swivel, and you could tell it was like a real heavy machine gun. And Triple H swings it around, smacks Vince in the back of the head. It was pretty insane. Then they finally go backstage. They go outside. Vince is looking for him after they kind of tussle on a car. All of a sudden, H drives a fucking car and almost hits Vince McMahon with the car. It was pretty crazy. It was a great spot. Then they make their way to a limo. Triple H body slams Vince McMahon on top of the limo. Then he falls to the ground. Again, very violent, very cool spot to look at. They finally make their way back to the arena and they start climbing this tower, one of the stage towers where the cameras are. Well, this tower's about 20 feet tall and they're on the top of it. One head smash to the bar. Vince McMahon falls backwards. Another great spot to see. They make their way back, but H gets a mic and says, starts talking shit to Stephanie, don't ever ask who's your daddy anymore, because he's right here. He's your daddy, Steph. That's what I know now. Vince comes up just bleeding like crazy. So H gets a sledgehammer, but Vince ends up grabbing it. Steph runs in. She's like, no, I want to hit Triple H with the sledgehammer. That's what Stephanie says. All of a sudden, the game grabs a hold of it, uses the hammer on Vince, game over, Triple H wins. Well, then Stephanie goes there to console her dad. You could see Triple H saying, Stephanie! And yelling at her with the sledgehammer above his head like he's gonna fucking destroy her, like obliterate her brain. And all of a sudden she gets up and she embraces him. And they hug. And that is the beginning of the McMahon-Helmsley era. So if you aren't aware, you should go to the WWE Network, subscribe, watch. You'll see exactly what I'm talking about. This era lasted all of about a year. And then 2013 or 14, and then 15, 16. Well, the McMahon-Helmsley era is still going. So, yeah, it's still happening. Daniel Bryan can take care of that. It's still happening, though. So that is it for WWE Armageddon 1999, emanating from Fort Lauderdale, Florida. This is the TOP A to Z pay-per-view review with Mean Dean. Don't forget to click like, subscribe, comment, do anything you want. We're on iTunes, we're on Podomatic, we're on YouTube. Hit all the fucking buttons that are over there, because we aren't going away, motherfuckers. We are out.